जी आप मुझे भी होस्ट बना दीजिए।
अहमद भाई आप होस्ट हो।
सर आप हैं ऑलरेडी।
ओके ओके। Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem. On behalf of IBA Center for Excellence in Islamic Finance and SECP Pakistan, I would like to welcome all the participants on the webinar today. We are very fortunate to have with us Dr. Akram Laldeen, Executive Director, Islamic Research, Sharia Research Academy, Malaysia. He's a very well-known Islamic finance professional, very well experienced and very well respected in the Islamic finance world. We are also joined by Bilal Rasool Saab, who is the Executive Director and Head of Islamic Finance at SECP. So without further delay, I'll start the proceeding of the seminar with the recitation of Holy Quran. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahus samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Sadaqallahul azim. So after the recitation of the Holy Quran, I like to welcome all the participants of this webinar who have joined us today from different parts of the world, and I'm seeing the number is increasing. We are also live on the Facebook, so you can hear us on the Facebook and you can also hear us on Zoom. The format of the seminar is that I will start the seminar and then I will invite Mr. Bilal Rasool Saab for his opening remarks, and then we will ask Dr. Akram Laldeen for his presentation. We have allocated last 20 minutes for the question and answers. So all the participants who have any question, they can type the question on the chat box. So you need to type your question on the chat box, and inshallah, from the chat box, we will take the question and we will ask the question from our distinguished panelists. So with this word, the topic today that we have selected, innovative sukuk experience in Malaysia and in GCC world. The sukuk market has gone very rapidly up, especially the last year for Pakistan. Sukuk was a wonderful year. In Pakistan, we have seen more than 700 billion rupees of sukuk issued in the last year, which is 2020. So despite COVID, the Islamic finance, especially the capital market and the sukuk, has performed very well. The government has taken the sukuk program quite aggressively. We have seen over 500 billion rupees of ijara sukuk issued by the government of Pakistan. Then we have also seen 200 billion rupees of Pakistan Energy Sukuk, which was issued by Power Holding Limited, which is a subsidiary of government of Pakistan, and the purpose is to reduce the circular debt in the energy circle. And we see a lot of potential in the capital markets. We see a lot of potential in the private and corporate sector, and we see numerous corporates are now shifting towards the sukuk, and they are trying to meet their capital, their long-term financing need through the sukuk. And for the first time, we have seen that a sovereign sukuk was issued through a book building process in 2020, and it was a very successful process with the support of SECP, Pakistan Stock Exchange, and State Bank of Pakistan. So the sukuk market is expanding in Pakistan, and today the purpose of our seminar is to explore the successful sukuk experiments that are done outside Pakistan, and see how we can learn from those experiences, how we can replicate or how we can improve those experiences for Pakistan, keeping in view the Sharia requirement of Pakistan, that is the Sharia rulings, as well as the innovation that we need to expand this market. So with these words, I like to thank all the participants who have joined us today. I like to thank SECP especially, who have supported us for this seminar, and they were like the main motivator for organizing this seminar. And I again like to put on record special thanks to Dr. Akram Laldeen from ISRA, who is always kind for Pakistan. He always takes time on our request, and today is also available. So with these words, I like to invite Mr. Bilal Rasool Saab, Executive Director and Head of Islamic Finance, SECP Pakistan, for his welcoming remark. Bilal Saab, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As-salatu as-salam alayka ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum to everyone, the participants. It's an honor, Dr. Akram, to have you on this webinar. Thank you, Ahmed. I would just take a few minutes to elaborate the initiative on the webinar. This is the start of a series of webinars that we are planning to do with the 3 centers for excellence in Islamic finance, IB with our partners, IBA LAMS and the Institute of Management Sciences, Peshawar. The webinars we plan to do can be on any suggestion as well. We are open to suggestions. If anyone has an idea, anything that is not understood, we welcome those. So please come forward and give us any idea that you think that it would, but we would definitely be holding these webinars more frequently. I'd just like to say a special thank you to the IBA as well as the team here at the SECP, the Islamic Finance Department, who have coordinated the webinar. Just before I start, looking at this, the themes today, there are actually 3 themes: Sukuk and Innovative Structures, Financial Inclusion, FinTech. Is the 3 themes that I really see. Being a regulator, RegTech also figures in the discussion, but that's not the focus here today. But nevertheless, I'd like to say that the cornerstone of the Islamic Finance Department is to preserve and encourage faith-based investors and ensure the sanctity of the Sharia in a fast-changing financial environment. In order to keep things methodical and easy, I'm just going to delve into each of the above themes one by one and then try to bring them all together as we go along. A little background on SECP's Islamic Finance Initiative. We are inspired, the SECP is inspired by Article 38F of the Constitution of Pakistan, which requires elimination of riba and Islamization of the economy. We are providing regulatory support to promote the growth in Islamic finance and focused mainly on the ease of doing business while upholding Sharia. The Islamic Finance Department at SECP was established in 2015, and we've been trying to play an active and pivotal role in the development and promotion of Islamic finance, especially in laying down the required infrastructure. Pakistan does have a national financial inclusion strategy, the NFIS, which was launched in 2015 by the government of Pakistan, which sets the vision and outlines an action plan for achieving certain targets like ensuring development and promotion of Islamic finance in Pakistan. This strategy plans to empower the underprivileged masses of Pakistan through access and usage of formal financial services. The NFIS 2023 provides detailed action plans with timelines, clear roles and responsibilities of each stakeholder lead agency for implementation. One of the key prioritized areas of NFIS is promotion of financial inclusion through Islamic finance. And SECP and SBP are the lead agencies for this key area. We have formulated an action plan, and we're focusing quite aggressively on the sub areas of awareness raising and capacity building. Just to touch a little bit on the regulatory side on what SECP is doing for the Sukuk and Sharia compliant securities. The Islamic Finance Department introduced for the first time ever the definition of a Sharia compliant company and Sharia compliant security in the company law in 2017. Also, Section 451 was included in the Companies Act 2017, which requires that any company intending to issue a Sharia compliant security or Sukuk will obtain a certificate of Sharia compliance for the SECP under prescribed regulations. These regulations were prescribed, and they stand as the Sharia governance regulations prescribed in 2018, And they provide basically a holistic framework for companies and securities that are Sharia compliant. These are all companies other than banks and DFIs, mainly those that are under the jurisdiction of the SECP. There are the specific Sukuk privately placed regulations 2017, certain provisions in the public offering regulations 2017 are also there relating to Sharia. And we have, SECP has now for a couple of years have adopted Sharia standard number 17, which is entitled Investment Sukuk. I'm not going to go into the statistics of the Sukuk market. Ahmed has already elaborated on those. Yes, last year has been a phenomenal year in terms of issuances of corporate Sukuk with the power and energy Sukuk by the government, 200 billion issue. This including others, around 280 billion rupees worth of Sukuks were issued by the Islamic Finance Department. The certificates of Sharia compliance were issued here. There is definitely an overwhelming demand for Sukuk TFCs, participation term certificates, more than 400 billion against IPOs of equity IPOs of only 6 billion. So, as rightly said by Ahmed, Sukuk are ever more popular as an additional asset class for investment purposes to park surplus liquidity. They represent the real sector activity, but predominantly corporate Sukuks are privately placed and listed, and they seem to be crowding out smaller issuances. Access to finance is limited. The lower segments of society or the lower strata of society are financially excluded. I hope to hear from Dr. Akram today, what are those financial models that are there for smaller farmers, agriculturists, SMEs. Maybe we can, get some idea from what are those solutions whereby the lower stratum that I speak of can access finance easily. But I think this is an opportune time for short-term maturity Sukuks with higher returns because rates are extremely low around the world, the interest rates, so returns are not very positive. I think the main enabler here is the government of Pakistan that needs to innovate or introduce a new kind of Sukuk, a retail Sukuk, a mini Sukuk with low maturity, positive returns, so that the other segments of society can be involved in terms of both borrowing and for lending, for returns and for access to finance. The government Sukuk for the small investor who is conscious of religious and moral duties, you need to reach out to those people, the less privileged, as I said. I think we should, as a country, Pakistan, where there is a lot of vigor and passion for the welfare of the people, Sukuk, Zakat Sukuks, or Sadqa, Waqf Sukuk, betterment, and economic uplift of the society. I think we need to see more of these. I propose to maybe have an orange Sukuk for the poverty-stricken and the impoverished, a brown Sukuk for farmers, livestock owners, etc., those people who are struggling for credit or do not have the means to access finance. And then, of course, the SME Sukuk, which can create low-cost funds for retail distribution to the lowly developed areas, and possibly nominate some very credible SMEs or Islamic banks, for that matter, can take up the responsibility, or even as we see now that what is in the running are startups, the fintech startups. Since it's not a topic today, but the regulation of these startups would be an issue. There would be many challenges, but I think the solution lies here. The solution is fintech. Fintech is fait to comply. We know that it's causing disruption, and I believe it's going to be quicker than we think. Already in Islamic fintech, there has been innovation. The community is not so marginalized as it was. Online payments, digital payments is something that is very in vogue now. There is a real, as a regulator, we are experimenting with the regulatory sandbox, and we are receiving applications for peer-to-peer lending, crowdfunding, and other capital raising financial fintech startups. So definitely, this is going to change the complexion, the old facade of lending and distribution of funds. I believe the role of the institutional lending or the institutions is diminishing, and they need to improvise as well, because liquidity is piling up, but the potential is there. In Pakistan, I think the main problem is distribution of funds, again, ensured through fintech, which would see smart contracts, digital payments, digital takaful, ensuring asset backing, customer verification, blockchain, the whole list of things that are possible with fintech. Challenges for the regulator are no different in fintech. RegTech has to be geared for consumer and credit protection. Here, government policy is key. Developing the infrastructure, double taxation, stamp duties, capacity constraints, among others, are many of the challenges. Where half of the country is unbanked, religion does figure prominently. There is a high incidence of current account holders, which is great testimony to the gap that exists and the potential for Islamic finance. But trust is low. There is a lack of confidence, which is another reason why Islamic finance has not been able to make the inroads that it should have. But yet, I think we need to endeavor to innovate and come up with the right product that meets sustainable development goals. And well, IFD is here is available for any type of innovation. I thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. Look forward to the future webinars. Over to you, Dr. Akram. I hope I've not taken too much of the time.
Thank you, Bilal Sahab, and thank you for your opening remarks. Yes, definitely Sukuk is an area which can do wonders for its promotion of Islamic finance. And as you mentioned rightly, that there are new potential areas to be explored for social finance, for Waqf, for agriculture, for SME, and probably one of them, another area that we are currently exploring is to make the Sukuk available on the blockchain technology and tokenization of Sukuk, so a small investor can easily buy or invest in these Sukuk transactions without going to the formalities that may be normally followed for investing in a Sukuk. So without further delay, I would request the key speaker today, Dr. Akram Lal Deen. Professor Dr. Akram Lal Deen is an experienced Islamic finance professional. He's heading the Islamic Sharia Research Academy, and he is one of the main contributor in the development of Islamic finance thoughts in Malaysia. So, Dr. Saab, well, thank you very much. And now I'd like to ask you to start your presentation. Over to you, Dr. Saab.
Okay, أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن والصعب إن شئت سهلا أيها الإخوة الكرام أحييكم بتحية الإسلام Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, thank you very much, Brother Ahmad, and thank you also to Brother Bilal, for your very enlightening speech at the beginning. And I would like to take this opportunity also to thank the SEC of Pakistan and also IBA SECP for inviting me, perhaps, to share my thoughts on some of the issues related to sukuk, you see, and I think as all of us are aware, nowadays, of course, all of us are embracing, this pandemic, and it is a good time. It is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is a good time for us to reflect. Actually, when I think back about the pandemic, you see, when we look back at the growth of Islamic finance, the tremendous growth of Islamic finance, in which Islamic finance, as we know, that it is one of the fastest growing industry in the world. Perhaps, this is a time where we need to put a kind of stop and rethink about what we are doing all this while. And I think among the criticism on Islamic finance all this while is that Islamic finance is also making the rich richer and does not assist the poor, you see, to uplift themselves. So perhaps this is a good time for us to reflect, because this is also a good time. We can see that, you see, globally people are trying to help each other. People are trying to, overcome the difficulties in which we are in, and we hope that it will also become a kind of moment for us to reflect in Islamic finance about whatever that we are doing in the past more than 40 years, about 50 years. We are already here in this industry. So hope, you see, this will be a good time for us to reflect. Now, brothers and sisters, I'm going to go through briefly I have some introductory note. You see, I'm not going to go through the introductory note very in a detailed manner, because I will allow the organizer to share the slides with you later on, so you can go through and read about the development of the sukuk market. And as all of us are aware that sukuk market perhaps is one of the the growth of sukuk market is very encouraging. And if you look into the IFM sukuk report for 2020, the global sukuk issuance amounted to about 145.70 billion in 2019, and this is the highest value of yearly sukuk issuance ever since its first launch in 2001. And different, of course, different countries have different share in the sukuk market. But I think what is important is that, you see, for us to reflect back, you see, about the type of sukuks that we are issuing, and also who are the target market that we are looking at, you see, so that we can also ponder, you see, upon what is mentioned in the Quran, so that the wealth will not be concentrated, you see, to certain group of people. Kailada yakuna dulatan bainal aghniya'i minkum. That is what the Quran have teach us. You see, the Quran want a well-distributed wealth across the community. So I think whatever instrument that we are using, whether it is sukuk, you see, it is other instrument, it is very important for us to have this in mind, you see, so that we will try to enforce whatever the Quran is teaching us. Okay, I've given the definition of sukuk, in which I don't think I'm going to go through the definition of sukuk. I mean, the salient features of sukuk. I mean, these are some of the salient features of sukuk. About the ownership, I mean, the sukuk represent the proportionate ownership of Sharia compliant assets, underlying assets. I mean, the structure have to be Sharia compliant. The proceed have to be used for Sharia compliant purpose. I mean, the tenor, it can be long, short term, and whatnot. Okay, and then the returns, sukuk pays a regular return to sukuk holders in the form of profits, rents payment, and also receivables. Trading and redemption, the trading of sukuk in the secondary market need to comply with the Sharia requirements. The same goes to redemption. I mean, this is, of course, as all of us are aware that, I mean, there are some structure in sukuk, okay, in which, I mean, the underlying is debt. If it is a debt, then of course, there are some requirement, you see, from the Sharia point of view, if it is to be traded in the secondary market. I mean, if it is solely debt-based sukuk, then you cannot trade it in the secondary market. But if it is a mix, then there are different views, different interpretation on that. You see, what are the percentage, you see, of debt and equity that you can trade it in the secondary market. I mean, this is the comparison between sukuk and also bond. I think I will just skip all this. I mean, the growth of Islamic finance. If you look into the number of sukuk issued by structure, you see, we can see that in 2019, quite a number of sukuk has been issued based on the murabaha structure, okay, in which murabaha is a debt instrument, okay, and then you have the ijara. You see, ijara, I mean, you can trade it in the secondary market because there are the underlying, and then you have the mudarabah and also other sukuk. Still, murabaha is dominating the issuance, you see, and my assumption on this is that most of the murabaha sukuk comes from this part of the world, I mean, the Southeast Asia. And then you have the hybrid sukuk and also salam sukuk. And of course, as we know that sukuk are being issued, you see, depending on the need of the issuer, sovereign, and whatnot. Okay, I will just skip all this. In Malaysia, of course, alhamdulillah, I mean, the sukuk market provides a customized solution to government and also corporate issuers through a variety of sukuk structures. We have the murabaha, wakalah, mudarabah, musharaka, and also the hybrid structures based on the combination of different Sharia contract. And I think the progressive development of the Islamic financial ecosystem in Malaysia contributes towards enhancing the dynamism of sukuk in facilitating cross-border financial flows, including in the sustainable finance space, to achieve a more balanced, sustainable, and inclusive growth for the global community. And I think one of the advantages that we have in Malaysia is that we do have the full infrastructure when it comes to sukuk issuance, where sukuk is being regulated by the Securities Commission of Malaysia. And in the Securities Commission, I mean, they have a dedicated department, Islamic Capital Market Department, which are overseeing, I mean, all the issues, all the sukuk issuance, and also they are monitoring from time to time. They come up with, I mean, the rules, regulation related to the sukuk issuance and capital market as a whole. Perhaps it will be good, I mean, if you can visit the website of the Securities Commission of Malaysia, where you can find quite a number of guidelines related to sukuk, related to REIT, and also other capital market instruments. Okay, I will just skip this now. Okay, green sukuk issuance. Now, when we talk about innovation, perhaps I believe that innovation, of course, does not confine. It's not confined to the structures of the sukuk. I mean, you can innovate in the structure of the sukuk, but the other area of innovation is that we need to look into the purpose of the sukuk and how sukuk can serve, you see, the general objective of Sharia, or what we call it as maqasidu Sharia. I think this is one of the hot topic that is being discussed. You see, in various forums. You see, to what extent Islamic financial instruments are in line with the maqasid sharia or the objective of sharia. Because at the end of the day, yes, we need to maximize the return of the sukuk so that we can get investor to bring in money, pump in money to invest in sukuk. We can grow the sukuk market. I mean, that is, yes, you see, but on the other hand, we do not want to issue any Islamic instrument which is deemed to be halal, you see, halal, but then the impact of it is negative, right? Because sometimes when we talk about, let's say nowadays people are talking about the green sukuk. Okay, people are talking about a project, for example, that you see might be detrimental to the, let's say, a power project and whatnot. You see, where you have to clear forests, you have to do a lot of things in which, yes, I mean, you can provide, you see, certain solution, but then you are creating another problem, you see, environmental problem, climate change and whatnot. So if you look at the bigger picture, perhaps you are finding solution for certain segment of the society, but long term you are creating a bigger harm to the society, to the environment, to the world as a whole, in which, I mean, this is also not in line with the maqasid sharia. That's why whatever that we are doing in this world, Imam Shatibi rahimahullah, I mean, he has elaborated, you see, when he talked about maqasid, I mean, he has elaborated and say that in whatever that we do, I mean, there is janib al-maslahah wa janib al-mafsadah. Okay, there is the side in which it bring good, bring benefit, and it bring harm. Okay, so what is important is that, you see, for us to ensure that in whatever that we do, you see, and this is also the guidance from the revelation, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to do certain thing, to undertake certain thing, the janibul maslahah, I mean, the good things of it is outweigh the harm of it. So when the good part of it is greater, then it become halal. When the janib al-mafsadah is greater, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it haram. So that's why, I mean, in whatever that we are doing, you see, whatever purpose the sukuk that we are going to raise, we have to look at the end, what is the result of the usage of the money, whether it will bring good, it will bring harm to the society at large. And I think this is one of the dimension. You see, when you talk about innovation, this is one of the dimension that we need to bring together the practitioners, we need to bring together the expert, we need to bring together the Sharia scholars, you see, to think about the impact of whatever instrument. Because when it comes to structuring, we can use so many underlying concepts of Sharia in which we can structure it, but then at the same time, we need to assess the impact of the sukuk that we are doing. And if you look into the development that is taking place on the ground nowadays, people are talking about, for example, sustainable sukuk. People are talking about green sukuk issuance and whatnot. You see, and if you look into the purpose of this kind of issuance, I mean, it is very much to look at the impact. I mean, it goes beyond the dollar and cents, but it goes beyond that and try to look into the impact of the sukuk. And I strongly believe that this is also one of the areas that we really need to look at it, whether it is at the government level, it is at the corporate level. You see, for us to always assess what is the impact of whatever that we are doing. And you can see that the green sukuk, perhaps, I mean, this is one of the trend that we are looking beginning from 2017, that it is expected to accelerate in the coming years as part of effort to combat climate change. And I think all of us are experiencing the climate change nowadays. Even in Malaysia, I mean, for the past few days, the weather has been very, very hot, you see, and people are always complaining, and there is no rain, you see, in which it is quite unusual, the kind of climate or weather that we are experiencing for the past few days. I mean, generally, I think we can see cyclones, I mean, all sorts of weather phenomena that is happening across the globe. Perhaps, I mean, it might be attributed to the issue of climate change and whatnot. So we need to look, you see, beyond, as I mentioned, the fiqhi aspect of what we are doing, into looking into the impact of what we are doing, and the initiative of Green Sukuk. I believe, I mean, it is one of the good initiatives that hopefully it will be better in the future. Okay. I have some slides on the incentive by the Malaysian government. I'm going to skip, I mean, all this. You see, perhaps, I mean, you can always look into it. I'm going to focus on some of the sukuk structures. You see, that is, some of it are very recent, you see, and some of it are already there. And as you know, that when it comes to the Sharia contract, I mean, there are different contracts that can be used when it comes to sukuk. You see, I mean, you have the sale-based contract, murabaha, salam, istisna, and of course, I mean, the constraint of the sale-based contract is that it is a debt-based instrument. You see, so it cannot be traded in the secondary market. I mean, there are certain constraints for trading them in the secondary market, and there is the lease-based. You have ijara muntahiyah bil tamlik, ijara mawsufa fi dhimma. You have mudarabah, musyarakah, sukuk wakalah bil istithmar. And then among the latest innovation nowadays is about the wakaf sukuk and also the SRI sukuk. SRI sukuk, of course, socially responsible investment sukuk. I mean, this is very much it is a concept, see, which is quite prevalent nowadays. But in terms of structure, the underlying contract, usually wakalah bil istismar is being used, but it can also use any other contract. Okay, let me start with the wakaf. I mean, wakaf is one of the important tools that we have in Islam, in which I believe that, I mean, the wakaf has not been utilized and has not been used to the maximum when it comes to maximizing its potential, particularly in the social dimension. And we at ISRA, I mean, we have worked on a structure, you see, the wakaf structure, where there are different features in the wakaf structure. So basically, you see, I mean, there is the permanent wakaf feature and also the temporary wakaf feature, where there are scholarly debate, you see, because if we look into the classical book of fiqh, now we are always being told that wakaf is perpetual in nature, you see, and it has to be permanent. I mean, some would argue that, I mean, there is no such thing as temporary wakaf, you see, but we have done quite extensive research, and even the Fiqh Academy, you see, Fiqh Academy, they have acknowledged, I mean, the concept of temporary wakaf, and also, of course, nowadays, I mean, we are talking about the cash wakaf as well. You see, so we have deployed, I mean, this permanent and temporary wakaf concept, you see, and come up with a structure, okay, in which I will share with you the structure. So this is basically the structure of the temporary and permanent cash wakaf, where, you see, why we must have this permanent and also temporary feature. This is simply because when we talk about wakaf, of course, usually, as I mentioned, people are thinking about the perpetual nature of wakaf. But then, yes, I mean, you might have a group of people, okay, who are willing to give their money for good, right? But then we have to understand also, there are huge or large number of people out there. They are willing to provide their money for a certain period of time. Let's say, I mean, some people have saving for them to use when they retire. I mean, their retirement saving, for example. Okay, while they are still working, perhaps they might be working for another 5 years, 10 years. But after retirement, they would need the money to be used after retirement. I mean, this is one of the example, but there are many other example. Actually, we try to explore, I mean, this concept. Okay, I mean, there are quite many people who are willing, you see, to provide their money for charitable purpose, for good purpose, for certain period of time. Let's say for 5 years, for 10 years. I mean, that is one of the reason why we come up with this temporary cash wakaf concept. You see, so in this structure, if you look generally, I mean, it is quite I mean, usual structure that we have, where you have the trustee, you have the sukuk holders, you have the issuer. We name here wakaf company. It can be whatever entity. You see, and then there is the project, that is the beneficiaries, you see, that will benefit from the wakaf, and also there is a takaful coverage for the project, you see. So basically, we have the sukuk holder, all right, the sukuk holders consisting of people who are willing to provide their money for good, meaning that perpetual nature. See, that is the permanent cash portion of it. And then there might be people among the sukuk holder who are willing to give their money for 5 years, let's say 10 years, for a certain period of time. So, I mean, whatever is generated from the sukuk holder, of course, I mean, will be used by the issuer, in which, I mean, we have the trustee, of course, and in between, who will be acting on behalf of the sukuk holder, in which the proceed will go to the trustee, and then there will be the declaration of trust. I mean, all the governance feature will be intact. You see, and the money that is raised through this permanent and also temporary wakaf structure will be used for a viable project. Now, I mean, one of the big challenge is that, you see, to ensure, because when we talk about deploying wakaf money, and even if we look into the research related to investment of wakaf money, generally the scholars allow the investment of wakaf money, but the investment must be in a project which is viable. Of course, that's why, I mean, it is very important to ensure that the project in which the wakaf money is being deployed are very kind of I mean, highly I mean, we have to conduct a real due diligence, you see, to ensure that the project is really viable. Okay, so the money will be pumped into the project, and of course, I mean, you will have the takaful coverage to coverage in case, I mean, anything wrong happened to the project, and then, I mean, the return, you see, from the project will go back to the wakaf pool, okay, in which, I mean, it will be used, what is there in the wakaf pool will be used upon maturity to be paid back to the temporary wakaf sukuk holder, you see, and the rest, you see, will be used for good purpose, humanitarian, including awqaf, research, promotion, and charitable foundations and whatnot. I mean, for good purpose in the society. So you see, I mean, through this kind of structure, we can assist, particularly the less fortunate group in the society, and of course, I mean, those who are fortunate enough to have, I mean, extra cash, I mean, they can put it into the wakaf pool in which it can be used, you see, for beneficial purposes, instead of, you know, people nowadays, I mean, there are people who are giving wakaf by piece. So, but if we can really gather, I mean, the wakaf money and issue wakaf sukuk, I believe that, I mean, it can be used in a better manner and more structured manner, and within the framework in which, I mean, it is being regulated by the regulator, and it will, of course, go through, I mean, all the due diligence and also audit and whatnot. So the trust of the people will be better when we are using the capital market infrastructure, you see, in order to deploy the wakaf money for good purpose in the society. So, I mean, and one of the advantage, you see, particularly to the temporary cash wakaf contributor that is putting their money into this scheme, is that there is a view in the quite dominant view in the Maliki school, which says that whatever is given, you see, for charitable purpose, then there is no zakah. You see, if it is being given, because when we talk about the temporary cash wakaf, as if the sukuk holder that is providing the temporary cash wakaf is providing loan to the issuer, you see, to the wakaf pool, because after a certain period, then the wakaf money will goes back to the sukuk holder. Of course, I'm talking about the capital amount. I'm not talking about any excess from the capital. Yeah, you see, because any excess from the project will go back to the pool, and it will be used for the beneficiaries. So the temporary cash wakaf holder will get back the principal amount, not returned from their contribution towards the wakaf pool. Okay, so there is a dominant view also in the Maliki school, which says that anything that is being loaned for charitable purpose, then there is no zakah due on it. So this is also another, perhaps, I mean, plus point, you see, in which if a person just keep the money idle without deploying it, then of course, every year the person will have to pay zakah 2.5%. And that, of course, I mean, if it is not being used, then there is no return from the money. Then, of course, I mean, zakah is due on it. But in this case, you see, there is a dominant view in the Maliki school which says that, you see, zakah is not applicable, you see, for whatever it is being given for charitable purpose. So that view, of course, can be taken as a basis, you see, for the sukuk holder who are providing the temporary cash wakaf. Of course, I mean, for the permanent cash wakaf, I mean, there is no, as we know that, I mean, it is an outright contribution to the wakaf pool, so there is no issue of zakah. So this is one of the structure, and if you look later on, okay, I'll show you that the government of Indonesia, I mean, they have used, you see, this structure, you see, in order for them to issue sukuk. And in terms of using the different Sharia contracts, particularly, you know, in deploying the wakaf money, I mean, it can be, there are different Sharia contract that can be used, you see. For example, using an istisna contract or ijarah contract, I think in this example that I have given is that, you see, for example, a university wanted to develop housing for the students, you see, then the Wakaf company can build, you see, the residential, you see, and rent it to the university. Or, I mean, they can also build it, you see, on the basis of istisna for the university. So, I mean, these are among the different contracts that can be used, you see, for the by the in deploying the Wakaf money. Just give me a moment. I need to put the power for my laptop. Okay, so this is one of the possibilities, right? I mean, there are other contracts that can be used, you see. I mean, similarly, Mudarabah contract, let's say, I mean, the Wakaf fund can come into a Mudarabah arrangement with certain company, for example, to build hospital, you see, to develop any other viable projects, which in return will give back a good return to the Wakaf fund, you see, in which, I mean, again, when the project is a success, then definitely it will benefit the community at large, and it can also benefit the contributors, you see. And the beauty thing about, I forgot to mention earlier on about the temporary cash wakaf, even though people give it temporarily for a certain period of time, let's say for 5 years or 10 years, but the benefit of it, because whatever is being developed, the profit that is being generated from the Wakaf project will go back, you see, to the Wakaf pool, you see, and inshallah, I mean, the contributor will, I mean, whatever is contributed will be considered as jariyah, you see, in which, I mean, the ajar inshallah will be continuous, because his money is being used, even though he will get back the capital, but then the return from his money, you see, is being used continuously to develop more and more Wakaf project, and also to benefit the society at large. So as I mentioned, I mean, there are, I mean, different ways and means in which, I mean, it can be that we can use, you see, for this structure for us to develop the a viable kind of Wakaf usage in the society. I remember in Singapore, you see, I mean, there was a piece of land in the middle of, I mean, it is a Wakaf land, you see, in the middle of the town. I mean, it is in a very, you know, expensive area in the middle of the town, because, I mean, that plot of land was used in the to build a masjid. So what they did, I mean, they did not issue a Wakaf structure, because, I mean, it was not there. But I mean, this is again, I mean, how, you know, the Wakaf land is being used, because it is in the prime area. So what they did is that they issue an ijara sukuk, and they develop, you see, the plot of land into a high rise consisting of office blocks. And in one of the floor, or two floors of the building, I mean, they have the masjid on the 2 floors of the building, and they have, you know, shops at the ground level, and then office blocks, I mean, above. So they rent it out, the office block, and then the shops and whatnot, because it is in the prime area. And the masjid, all the proceed from this project goes back to the Wakaf fund of the masjid, and it is being used, you see, for the benefit of the masjid as well as for the benefit of the community at large. Because I think it is important, perhaps. I mean, these are some of the ideas that we can even look into developing. You see, Wakaf land or Wakaf property. Perhaps, I mean, through the Wakaf structure that we have now, I mean, this can be used. But then, on top of that, sometime in many jurisdictions, we can see that there are quite a number of Wakaf land, particularly, are being, are there idle without generating any income, or sometimes it just generate a small amount of income. So, I mean, these are among the things that we really need to look into it, you see, and try to think on how do we can maximize the return from the Wakaf land. And of course, what is needed when it comes to to having this kind of structure, you have to establish the institution. I mentioned about finding the excellent projects, see, and find a guarantor. I mean, it can be the Awqaf Ministry, local government, IDB, and whatnot. You see, I mean, it can be, I mean, this kind of entity that will be able to assist. And among the phase to establish a social enterprise company, project and due diligence, appointment of Sharia advisor, finding the guarantor, and all these requirements usually by the regulatory authority. There must be a ranger, lawyer. So meaning that everything should be done as we are issuing a normal sukuk, or you see instrument in which, I mean, it has to be approved by the regulatory authority. Then only, of course, I mean, there will be the confidence among the people in order for the people to provide and to perhaps contribute to the Wakaf projects. Okay, some other sukuk, actually, if you look into, I mean, this is one of the sukuk musyarakah in which it is issued by Cagamas. Basically, Cagamas is the National Mortgage Corporation of Malaysia. It was established in 1986. And basically, Cagamas issues corporate bonds and also sukuk, not only Islamic instrument. It issue corporate bonds and also sukuk to finance the purchase of housing loans and also receivable from financial institutions, selected corporation and also public sector. They do serve, I mean, the government as well. You see, so they do issue sukuk. You see, musyarakah, for example. I mean, in this structure, I mean, you can see that you have the investor on one side and also Cagamas. I mean, these are the two parties. You see, the musyarakah is between the two parties in which they will purchase, you see, the mortgage from the government. You see, and then of course, I mean, whatever return from the mortgage, I mean, it will be given back to the investors. Of course, I mean, in this case, what is being purchased is a mortgage. Then there might be certain issue of buy or dain and whatnot, you see, in which, I mean, there are different discussion among the scholars on this issue. Wakalah, I think wakalah, I mean, you are quite familiar with it. All right, commodity murabaha, tawarruk, sukuk, also, I think it is quite prevalent, you see, in which it can be used for different purpose, and Cagamas is also using it. You see, I mean, this is the sukuk model that I mentioned earlier on, in which ISRA and Islamic Development Bank, I mean, we have presented it to the IDB, and they are going to use it. Sukuk for Vaccine Fund. I mean, this again, I mean, this is very much on how do we deploy, you see, the sukuk. I mean, even though, I mean, this sukuk was established quite some time ago, but I would say that, I mean, this type of sukuk is being issued for good purpose, you see, in which even though, I mean, the structure that is being used here, you see, is a murabaha structure, but then the purpose of the issuance of the sukuk is to facilitate the immunization company raising 500 million for children's immunization in the world's poorest country through Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. And perhaps, you see, nowadays, what I'm thinking is that, I mean, with this pandemic that we are having, you see, not many Muslim countries are there to kind of develop the vaccine. Okay, and we can see that I think most of the vaccines are being developed in non-Muslim country, and I believe that whenever there is a pandemic in this world, then we as a Muslim, we should think, okay, to become the inventor, not to become, you see, end user or consumer only. But the mentality nowadays, you see, it is very, very sad to say that, you see, the mentality is that, I mean, we are very much, you see, a consumer rather than trying to become inventor. So I hope that, you see, we can always use, okay, sukuk for socially responsible purpose to develop vaccine and whatnot. And if you can see that, I mean, the structure is quite simple. You see, it is a murabaha structure. Okay, but then what is important is that the usage of the sukuk. Okay, I mean, this is the cash wakaf link sukuk program. If you look at this structure, basically it is not that different from the structure that I have presented earlier on wakaf. You see, where there is the temporary element, temporary cash wakaf, and there is the perpetual cash wakaf instruments. And the beauty thing is that, I mean, this is being issued by the government, right? So it is initiated by the government of Indonesia, Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Religious Affairs, and the Indonesian Wakaf Board and Bank Indonesia was named. It was named Cash Wakaf Link Sukuk Program. Was formally launched in October 2018 and considered as the first one of its kind Government of Indonesia Sukuk Program combining Islamic social and commercial contracts to finance the public or socially driven projects. So you can see that, you see, it has been taken up by the Indonesian government, you see, and it can be used and it can be deployed, you see, for good purpose by the government particularly. The other one that I would like to share with you is okay, these are some of the Sukuk Ihsan. Okay, I mean, Sukuk Ihsan, I mean, is the Malaysian first sustainable and responsible investment sukuk issued by Khazanah Nasional Berhad and exclusively offered to institutional investors. The proceeds from this sukuk were channeled to a foundation, which is called Yayasan Amir, a not-for-profit organization which is incorporated in 2010, you see, to improve the accessibility of quality education in Malaysian government. So you can see that for this particular sukuk, I mean, there are certain KPIs, key performance indicator that was put by the issuer. You see, first is number of trust schools, minimum of 20 identified schools are selected during the term of the sukuk. Senior leadership minimum of 50% of the senior leadership team of the identified schools are highly proficient in enabling positive and relevant teaching environment. And teachers, minimum of 50% of the teachers of the identified schools are at establishing level or above, and minimum of 50% of students of the identified schools demonstrate positive values, and at least 75% of the student population are able to pass the national literacy and also numeracy test. So there are certain, you see, social kind of KPIs which are being put, you see, for the Sukuk to achieve. So I mean, this is the kind of effort, and of course, I mean, we can always, you see, structure the Sukuk in the different kind of structure that is available. You see, whether in this case, of course, I mean, it is very much wakalah bil istismar, wakalah structure, you see, but then, you see, the purpose of the Sukuk, I mean, it is not just, you know, the return is being measured here, but then what are the impact of the Sukuk that is also being assessed, you see, for the issuer to work on it. So I believe, I mean, this is the kind of the dimension that we really need to look into it moving forward. I think Brother Bilal did mention about the, you know, SME agriculture sector and whatnot. Perhaps one of the area that we can, or one of the structure that we can explore is the salam structure. But then, you see, the challenge with salam structure, as we know, is that one, it is a debt-based instrument, because when you talk about farmers and whatnot, they need money to start, you see, for the crops and whatnot. I mean, to start their work on their land, you see. So they need money at the beginning. So we can have a salam arrangement with them. You see, can issue a salam sukuk. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, the salam sukuk is also being used in Nigeria. In Nigeria, I mean, the government did issue the salam sukuk in order for them to provide assistance to the farmers and also to the SMEs and whatnot. So I mean, salam structure can also be I mean, we can try to explore. Now, before I end, I think this is one of the structure that I would like to share with you. That is IAP. I think earlier on, I think Brother Ahmad or Brother Bilal did mention about crowdfunding and whatnot. I mean, this is an initiative. It is not a sukuk, of course, but it is a platform. You see, what we call as investment account platform, IAP, which was launched to become a cross-border multi-currency channel linking into regional and also global economies. The IAP is backed by Islamic banking institution. There are several Islamic banking institutions offering, or perhaps, I mean, is within, I mean, the scheme. And through this platform, Islamic banking institution will facilitate matching of investment with the identified ventures or projects that are in need of funding. So you can get, I mean, the common people, you see, to give money, to provide money. It is more or less similar to crowdfunding, you see, but it is more institutionalized. I mean, crowdfunding usually, I mean, you can see that private entities, I mean, they are, you know, running the crowdfunding projects and I mean, crowdfunding initiative. But then in this case, I mean, different Islamic banks come together, you see, for them to, and they create a consortium in which, I mean, this consortium is the one that is facilitating the entire IAP program, investment account platform. So here you have the Islamic banks, you see, because the role that is being played by Islamic bank, you see, is in line with their fiduciary duties, in which if, you see, there are any ventures or anyone who submitted a proposal, you see, then the proposal will be assessed by the expert from the Islamic Bank. If it is a viable project, then only they will facilitate, you see, for the investors to invest. Of course, I mean, the investors, if you look, if you go to the IAP platform, I mean, you can see that the investors are informed about the type of risk that they are taking, you see, when they invest in this kind of initiative. So I think the beauty thing about this is that the Islamic Bank, different Islamic banks, I mean, they do come together, you see, and try to propagate, I mean, this kind of and run this kind of initiative in which, I mean, it is good, you see, for the community on one side. You are helping the startups, you see, those people who are in need of money to start their business, or there might be certain entity that like to expand their business. You see, I mean, these are among the people that can benefit from this type of scheme, and it used the same standard that is being used by the Islamic Bank in terms of assessing the risk and whatnot. So this is the kind of initiative that perhaps Pakistan can also try to come up with this kind of initiative, and try to get, you see, the people at large to participate in the investment activities, and it is not only confined, I mean, to those segment of the society who have big money to participate, but anyone in the society can participate in the program. Okay, I think I will stop there for the time being. If you have any, I believe that if there is any questions, I believe that there are some questions. You see, I mean, there are some other slides. I believe that, I mean, you can always go through the slides and read through the slides, you see, to benefit from the information that is there in the slides. So let us open for discussions. I mean, if you have any question, then whatever that I can answer, I will answer. Otherwise, I'll give to Brother Ahmad Siddiqui to answer. Okay, so back to you, Brother Ahmad.
Thank you, Dr. Akram, for a wonderful presentation. You have discussed a lot of new ideas, especially related to the social aspect, the work aspect, and the wakala-based structures. So one of the questions that I would like to start with, as the governments are one of the major financier or the borrower in the economy, especially in the case like Pakistan. So what type of structure you would suggest for the government of Pakistan to convert towards a Sharia compliant borrowing mode or Sharia compliant mode and avoid interest-based borrowing? So what type of sukuk? We are already experiencing Ijara sukuk already, but we would like to hear your thoughts about what are the different structures for the government of Pakistan, which is borrowing for the social development purpose, for its budget deficit, and for the development projects in Pakistan.
Okay, thank you, Brother Ahmad. Perhaps, I mean, if you look into the different jurisdiction, the most prevalent structure that is being used is the Ijara structure. You see, in which I believe, as you mentioned, as you pointed out, you see that the government has already been used the Ijara structure. You see, where because the thing with Ijara sukuk is that, I mean, the government can always use the assets that is available. Because the issue, I think, usually in the government issuance, I mean, they don't have much issue with the asset, because government do own assets, so they do have assets. You see, so they can use the different assets. And apart from the Ijara, perhaps I think the Waqaf sukuk that I mentioned earlier on, you see, as I mentioned, Indonesia have started using it. You see, so why not? I mean, Pakistan government try to explore in using the Waqaf structure, because when you talk about Waqaf, I mean, it is the combination, you see, of both. I mean, you have the charitable element in it, you see, and even you can structure the Waqaf model, you see, by having an arrangement, you see, with the investors on a mudarabah basis, for example, right? You might expect people who put their money want certain kind of return. Okay, I mentioned earlier on, it is kind of qard that is being given by the investors to the Waqaf fund. But we can also explore an alternative arrangement where what is being pumped into the Waqaf pool, I mean, it is a mudarabah arrangement between the Waqaf pool and also the investor, in which the investor will have the opportunity to get, you know, a certain level of return from whatever because I can see that the kind of flexibility is there. And also the combination of social, and we can also have the element of return, you see, within the same structure. And I believe that, I mean, this kind of structure, I mean, if we really deploy it, because I mean, it will please people in the sense that they know that, one, they know the money, where the money is going. And when it comes to Waqaf, I would expect that those who are managing the Waqaf fund, okay, will take extra precaution in order for them to deploy, I mean, the Waqaf the Waqaf what money. And of course, the examples that I give is on a smaller scale. Perhaps the same structure can also be used, you see, for developing infrastructure, for many other purpose, I believe. So perhaps, you see, I mean, this is one of the area that we can always, I mean, try to explore. Because if you're talking about other structure, I mean, you can have murabah structure, you can have other structure, but then you see the result, you see, more or less, I mean, it is similar to the Ijarah structure. The Ijarah structure is easier to do. Why? Because the government already have the underlying asset which can be used, you see, in order for the government to issue the sukuk. So perhaps, I mean, it might be good, you see, to try to explore the Waqaf model as well. Allahu A'lam.
The second question I'd like to ask you is about there's some although it's a commonly asked question, it's a common misconception, and scholars have answered multiple times, but some people are still confused that if we use benchmarks in a sukuk pricing, so does that although they are interest-based benchmark like LIBOR or KIBOR, but where they are used not as to take interest or give interest, they're used for calculating rental or maybe price of profit. So what is the Sharia ruling about it?
Okay, thank you, Brother Ahmad. Of course, I mean, when we talk about benchmark is a guideline that you are using, you see. I mean, it is some sort of kind of guidance, okay, that you are using in order for you to price your product. And you can see, I mean, it is common in the market. If you look why the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you see, there was a hadith in which at one time the price has gone up in the market, and the Sahaba went to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, Sa'ir lana, meaning that the Sahaba tell the Prophet ﷺ to put the shilling of pricing in the market. And the Prophet ﷺ refused, and the Prophet said, Inna Allah huwal musa'ir. I mean, the Prophet refused to put certain shilling on certain item at that time. Why? Because the concept is that it is the market that is going to determine the price, okay? And it should be left to the force of the market to determine the price. Now, when you come to the market nowadays, all right, what is the, when you come to financial industry, what is the benchmark that is available? Because of the conventional business, the ribawi business, I mean, is more dominant. So they are the one who put the pricing of, if you're going to take loan, for example, from the bank, okay, I mean, they will based on the BLR plus, you know, I mean, the plus might be, I mean, certain values. You see, so that is the pricing mechanism that they are using, right? So the same thing, okay, since, I mean, we are in a market which is dominant by the conventional business. You see, we do not have any other benchmark that we can rely on it. Okay, so at this juncture, I would say that since it is just an indication, okay, or a guidance that we are using in order for us to price our product. So from the Sharia point of view, I mean, there is no issue with it, you see. That's why I always tell people, I mean, you guys, you people, all of us, we have to support the Islamic finance industry. When the Islamic finance industry is 80%, 90% in the market, inshallah, we will be able to set our own pricing mechanism. At that time, the conventional have to follow us, not we follow them. So at the end of the day, I mean, it is just a benchmark. It is just an indicator that is being used in order for us to. And if you go to the market nowadays, all right, if you go to, let's say, a supermarket, you want to buy a canned drink and whatnot. I mean, you can see generally that, okay, the market is taking extra, you see, X percentage over and above the cost price. So that is the indication. So it does not affect the validity of the contract. That's why, I mean, for me, I would urge, you see, let us support Islamic finance. We are the dominant force in the market. Then we will be able to dictate the market, and we will be able to put our own pricing mechanism. Then others, the conventional market, will have to follow us. Allahu Alam.
Thank you, Dr. Akram. One more question is about the use of salam sukuk, the potential of salam sukuk, because we see that maybe our agriculture business men or agriculturists can use this product and also for short-term financing. Is it a potential available for salam-based transaction in a sukuk structure?
It is potential, but then you see, when you talk about salam, I mean, there are certain risks associated to it. One, of course, I mean, salam is a debt instrument, right? Because you talk about salam is a contract where you provide advance to the farmers, I mean, to whoever is in need of money. You see, so when you provide advance to this group of people, of course, I mean, there are certain risks associated to it. Whether, I think it is very much the credit risk, you see, whether you see they can, because you provide them with money and buy certain crops from them, and they will in return, you see, provide you with the crops with whatever, and then you will sell it to the market. So we need to have infrastructure in order for us to enable salam structure, because you need certain infra intact in order for you to deploy salam. So there might be more work that need to be done, you see, and risk assessment and whatnot. But it is one of the area that we can always explore, you see, when it comes to crops, farming and whatnot. And I mean, we have this muzara'a, musaqa, which is similar to musharakah, you see, in which, I mean, the investor will share in the return of the crops with the farmers. But then again, I mean, in all this, I mean, there are certain risks associated to it in which we need to explore more when it comes to I mean, what type of risk that the investor, whether we can get, you see, the right investor to invest in this kind of structure or not. I mean, those are among the challenges that we might face. Allahu Alam.
Yeah, yes, Dr. Akram. I think for salam-based sukuk, I think one of the additional requirement is that the banks need to be more geared up for dealing in commodities. They need to probably establish their own warehouses and silos, just like the concept of warehouse receipt. So I think this is one of the area we can look and work with the regulator. I'll take the opportunity. There's one question that is probably related to Bilal Rasul Saab from SECP. We have talked about the Waqf structure. Do you see in terms of regulation that our regulations allow Waqf to use as an instrument for sukuk, or maybe we need to gear up our regulation? Bilal Saab, this question is towards you.
Yeah, well, it's not really about SECP's mandate. There is absolutely, I think, no restriction on having a Waqf structure. But the problem, I think, is infrastructure. You already have, and like I said, I think fintech is the answer to that structure. And when you're talking about salam and buying from the farmers and selling it into the market, leaving out the middleman or going through a commodity exchange. I mean, with fintech and with customer identification and all the fintech advantages, then your existing structures can cater to the workforce. Maybe they don't right now. So, I mean, it's not about the regulation as much as the infrastructure and the technology. So very possible. I think that is the answer, actually.
I think a positive answer from regulator means that the industry now need to work. The regulator is supportive of the idea, which is a good news for the industry. Dr. Akram, one question that relates to Bilal Rasul Saab's comment of fintech. We now have discussions of tokenization of sukuk and blockchain-based sukuk. So an individual just sitting in his or her home using a mobile app, and just in 5 minutes he'd make an account and he invest 100 rupees in a sukuk. Is that possible?
Well, you see, if you look into I mean, very interesting. Actually, yesterday we have a very good discussion with the International Fiqh Academy, Majma' Fiqh in Jeddah. I was in discussion with the Secretary General. Exactly, I mean, more or less on this issue of using fintech and also blockchain. You see, for Waqaf also, and also for Zakah. You see, I think because if you talk about blockchain, I mean, it is a platform that you can deploy it for so many good purposes. You see, and the good thing about blockchain is that the level of transparency that you have with blockchain, you see, and there are so many good things that you can do it. Of course, I mean, you need to develop the system and whatnot. And I think this is one of the area, you see, when it comes to investment. I mean, nowadays, even if you look conventionally, I mean, there are so many avenues for you to invest. Here in Malaysia, for example, our pension fund, you see, the EPF, I mean, they have created a platform on their website. For me, you see, I have my pension fund. I contribute every month. It is mandatory. You see, I mean, the pension fund have created a platform which is called iInvest. You see, iInvest is a platform where I, as a contributor, I can use my money. Of course, I mean, there are certain restrictions and whatnot, you see, in order for me to invest in the share market and whatnot. But of course, I mean, it is very much regulated. And the beauty thing about it is that, you see, in the platform, I mean, it is mentioned, I mean, this instrument, what is the risk? Are you willing to take the risk? I mean, there are certain questions that you need to answer so that it is an education process. You are being educated. At the same time, you can make your decision whether you want to invest in this portfolio or you do not want to invest in portfolio. I think this is the kind of thing that you see in Islamic finance. Perhaps we need to take advantage of this kind of development, you see, in order for us to educate people, you see, to use the technology, because technology, either you use it or you will be left behind. If you don't use it, then you will be left behind. So for us, al-hikmatu dalatul mu'min, aynama wajadaha fahuwa ahaqqu biha. For all, as mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ, I mean, the hikmah, I mean, whatever is good, you see, is something which is missing from us. So wherever that we can, we get it, then we have to deploy it, we have to use it for the good purpose. So perhaps, I mean, I strongly believe that we need to use it, and there is no issue to make it Sharia compliant. I mean, it is just that, because I mean, these are platform. I mean, you can always fit the platform and tweak the platform in order for you to satisfy the Sharia requirement. You see, and it can be done. It has been done in so many avenues. Allahu A'lam.
Ahmed, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Brother Ahmed.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Saab. Just last question for today. We are running out of time. For SME, do you see potential of Sukuk? Because Sukuk means large corporates, governments. So have we done something? Do we think that SMEs can be enabled? And again, that probably technology is the answer. That if we have some technological based innovation, we can have a small ticket Sukuk coming out of market. Any thoughts on this, Dr. Akram?
Actually, for SME, what I can see is that, you see, one of the gap that we see in the market now is that the issue with SME is that information. All right. Actually, I was talking with some of my colleagues the other day. Is that I mean, he was saying that why not we use blockchain, okay, to develop a comprehensive database of all these SMEs. The problem with SMEs now is that, I mean, there are very good people who trade. I mean, they have a very good cash flow, but banks, even government does not have information about what they are doing. Okay, you just imagine that you have big data where you can click, you can know that X business, what is this his business or her business. I mean, what is the nature of cash flow, how much the person generate in one day, what is the ability of the person to pay back if I'm providing certain financing to the person and whatnot. I mean, you just imagine if all this information is available, I believe that even banks are willing to provide the assistance to the SMEs. See, the problem that we have now is that we don't have the data. You see, so for me, it will be a good step if we can start and get the data. I mean, government together with the private sector, together with the banks. I mean, they can provide. You see, the financing in Malaysia, for example, we have SME Bank. You see, and the SME Bank, the government provide the funding to the SME Bank, and the SME Bank will do, of course, I mean, all the due diligence and whatnot, and channel the funding. And for your information, SME Bank is an Islamic bank. You see, in Malaysia, you see, so they are using all the Islamic instruments. You see, for them to channel the funding to the targeted segment in the society. Those who are in SME. So I think perhaps it will be a good move for us to think on how to provide this data. Sometimes, I mean, small businesses, but they have a very good cash flow. You see, their income one day, I mean, they get good income, but they does not know where to go. They does not have the avenue for them to expand, whereas they have the potential to expand their businesses. So these are the kind of people that we really need to assist them, and we need to develop the database in order for us to assist, I mean, this group of people. And of course, I think the very unfortunate thing is that during this pandemic, I mean, the SMEs are one of the sector which is very, very hard being hit. You see, because they cannot, run their business. particularly during the lockdown and whatnot. So these are the group of people that we really need to think on how to assist them. Allahu A'lam.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. And I think one of the area that we need to also look into the cost of issuance of sukuk, especially for SME and small corporate, small commercial segment or small corporates. But maybe technology is the answer. This brings us to the end of the webinar. I would like to invite Mr. Bilal Rasool for his concluding remarks. And I'd like to thank Dr. Akram from IBA, SECP and SECP on behalf of IBA, SECP and SECP. So Bilal Rasool Saab for your concluding remarks.
Right, Jazakallah Ahmed. Thank you for all the support and the coordination. Dr. Brother Akram, it has been a real honor, very insightful. And we do hope that you will join us in future webinars. I think it's been very precious, your contribution. Thank you to all the participants. We hope that this has been very useful for you. And like I said, if there are any areas that you feel that need to be discussed, take this opportunity with the brilliant scholars of the world, and we'll get them here. And with the centers of Islamic finance, we can discuss the issues that are most needed or discussion is required on that. Thank you once again. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Dr. Akram Laldeen, and thank you all the participants who have joined us today, who on the Facebook, on Zoom. You have asked your interested questions, any very insightful questions. Your comments were very useful for us. The webinar is available. The recording of the webinar is available on our IBSC Facebook page. We have shared the link as well to get the slides. So with these words, I again thank ISRA, Dr. Akram Laldeen, Bilal Rasool Saab, SECP, IBSC team who have worked hard for this seminar. Thank you very much, and Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.